The phones were tapped. You'll hear people like Lindsey Graham and other Republican senators screaming this recently, and probably you're going, what are they talking about? And every time they have a new thing they're outraged about, the chances are it might have something to do with January 6th are really high. We just went through and thoroughly debunked they had a bunch of agents in the crowd and all the lies there. And now they have a new one, which is that Jack Smith was tapping their phone, like listening to Lindsey Graham's phone calls, reading his texts to people, looking at what he's doing on certain anonymous apps, maybe. And he's upset about that. Now, obviously, they're misrepresenting this. I'll get to that in a second, but look at how fed up he was. You'll be confused. It seems like he's screaming at Pam Bondi here. He's not screaming at her. He's just screaming, and she's sort of like, yeah, you're right. The last DOJ was terrible.
You can't, can you?
I can't, Senator, and I
can't.
Can
you tell me why my phone records, when I'm the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, were sought by the Jack Smith agents? Why did they ask to know who I called and what I was doing from January 4th to the 7th? Can you tell me that?
No, Senator, and there were 8 senators in total.
Okay, first of all, I love how he goes, why did they tap my phone and want to know what I was doing in between January 4th and January 7th of 2021? Something notable happened in between those dates, and I think you might know the answer to that question. But again, he's misrepresenting it. And then something about giving all the lore, L-O-R-E, lore, as Trump spelled out for us, around Lindsey Graham and maybe his struggles with his own identity and maybe the rumors that we were hearing when we were in D.C., around D.C., about the types of people who would maybe go to his hotel room and maybe they were getting a check of some kind, or maybe he paid it in cash. I don't know, allegedly, but like those kind of rumors that swirl about him and having to suppress who he is. So then maybe he was at that Madison Cawthorn get together that we reviewed yesterday. It's kind of funny to hear him go, why did they want to know what was on my phone? They said I was looking at vulgar content, zebras, making love. I didn't look at any such things. Particularly funny with him. But Josh Hawley was also upset.
I wanted to be sure I heard it correctly. I've heard them say that Joe Biden never targeted his political enemies. Joe Biden never directed his attorney general to target his political opponents. That's interesting, because I could have sworn that yesterday we learned that the FBI tapped my phone. Let's look at it. We've got a list. Tap my phone, tapped Lindsey Graham's phone, tapped Marsha Blackburn's phone, tapped 5 other phones of United States senators. Gee, it sure looks like targeting political opponents to me, and yet I haven't heard a word from that side of the dais about any concern whatsoever. We've got nothing but concerns today, but no concern at all for a Justice Department that is tapping the phones of sitting United States senators because who knows why. They don't like them. They're members of the opposition party. They're Republicans.
So stop playing dumb like that. Who knows why they had any interest? And they weren't getting their phones tapped. I'm just kind of leaving that as the thing that you have to wait for, whatever. But it's kind of like saying, let's say you're in a volleyball league and you start murdering your competitors, and then you are out there yelling that the federal government seems to hate volleyball players. They're investigating this volleyball player, but then all the people you're listing were either a part of or suspected to be a part of the scheme of murdering other volleyball players. It would be like, well, it's not, you weren't targeted because you were a volleyball player. You were targeted because your association of volleyball players was engaged in criminal conduct. And that's what's happening here is, as they were investigating Trump for trying to illegally overturn the election results, then as they were trying to get a sense of what was he doing on that day, who was he communicating with, and who was he pressuring to do what to defraud the lawful election result, obviously all of you guys were the ones he was communicating with, so they were going to have to get phone records, not tapping your phone, get phone records, see who was calling, what was happening during those specific dates, a very limited number of dates, which makes complete sense, and we already knew this. It's kind of like the agents in the crowd talking point. We just learned that, and then you look and there's a report, the Inspector General report from a while ago, where we already knew that number they're pointing to was just how many people responded on that day after everything broke out, not embedded in the crowd to provoke people. But you have Media Matters reporting on this. Legal reporters explain that there's not much to the story. The FBI need to review the toll records of senators in order to establish who Trump and his alleged co-conspirators were trying to contact before and during the January 6th insurrection. And as we continue through this, please do remember to click the subscribe button if you appreciate the show. It is free, but there's a little something called an algorithm, and you support that through subscribing. Smith's final report cites such toll records in a footnote for its statement that at around the same time as he issued his 6:01 p.m. tweet, and then goes through the details of where this was cited. But it was already in the report. We already knew this. And obviously, you're trying to get a timeline clear, see who was participating, and Lindsey Graham was literally one of the people pressuring Georgia officials to find votes with Trump. So because you involved yourself, that's why you became involved in the investigation. And it was lawfully accessing your phone records through the investigatory process, not just tapping your phones and seeing who you were meeting at the Motel 6, Lindsey. But even Ron Johnson, who was one of the people that they're saying was tapped or had his phone records seized, on Newsmax had to go, well, yeah, all right, I love it. I love your energy, to the Newsmax host. Our phones weren't tapped.
I want to talk to you about this. I saw the news conference this afternoon. You and other Republican senators briefed by the FBI about a recovered document that shows Jack Smith, the special counsel, this Arctic Frost team that was investigating January 6th. You had your phone tapped by Jack Smith. Lindsey Graham, Marsha Blackburn, Hawley, others had it as well. Illustrate to us how big of a deal this is.
Well, first of all, they weren't tapped. They just extracted or obtained records from, I think, January 4th through January 7th or 8th of 2021 surrounding January 6th.
Okay.
So they got that metadata. But no, based on what I've found out investigating the federal government, it doesn't surprise me, but it should shock and outrage every American.
So then he goes on to the talking point. This should shock and outrage, but even he has to go, okay, they weren't. Because that would be different to just start listening into all of the present correspondence. I mean, depending on, I don't know what the law is around that and what access, what subpoenas or whatever would have to take place, but that would be different. That's why they're wording it that way, as opposed to just, oh, they accessed our phone data or our phone records, specifically about the calls and the texts that were happening during that specific notable period of time, to get a sense of what was happening when, who Trump was talking to, who was being coordinated with, which is exactly how you think an investigation would go. And hey, maybe they wouldn't have had to do that if you would have been more forthcoming. And now we get to look back at two of my favorite clips of Ron Johnson squirming about his participation in the fake elector scheme, and then Jim Jordan, the most iconic clip ever of him, more than squirming, he's like jumping up and down while he's trying to answer this. But this was Ron Johnson.
And I know you've said publicly that it's a non-issue what happened with the slate of electors and your involvement.
I virtually, you can't, I had no involvement. I received either 3 texts and I sent 2 texts, or the other way around. I mean, my lack of involvement was seconds worth of texting.
But that is still involvement.
But I didn't even know, I was texted that something had to be delivered to the vice president. I didn't know what it was. And was there somebody that could help arrange delivery? So then I talked to my chief of staff, and he took care of it. We found out that the vice president wasn't accepting anything. He said, can't deliver anything. That was the end.
I was a glorified UPS driver, okay? It was just facilitating a delivery. Why whoever was giving it to you needed you to give it to Pence? They couldn't just get it to Pence?
Story.
But if he would have said yes?
You can't call that involvement.
But if he would have said yes, go ahead and deliver it, even though you didn't know what it was?
What would you do if you get a call? If you get a call from the president of the United States lawyer wanting to get something to the vice president?
But you didn't know what
I didn't
it
know.
was.
Again, you've
Wouldn't you want to inquire what something is to hand to the vice president?
So you're saying nothing was suspicious about Rudy Giuliani? Is that who he's talking about? Calling you and saying, "Ron, I need you. I need you to give this envelope to Mike." And you're like, wait, but you're the president's lawyer. Why would you not have more access to the vice president than a random senator has to the vice president? Clearly, he was being looped in on the fake elector scheme, but didn't want to admit it. And then I wouldn't be surprised if Jim Jordan's phone records were seized, because my goodness, when he was being asked about this, it was very unclear when he talked with Trump about what.
Did you speak with President Trump on January 6th?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke with the president last week. I speak with the president all the time. I spoke with him on January 6th. I mean, I talk with President Trump all the time, and that's I don't think that's unusual. I would expect members of Congress to talk with the president of the United States when they're trying to get done the things they told the voters in their district to do. I'm actually kind of amazed sometimes if people keep asking this. But of course, I talk to the president all the time. I talked to him, like I said, I talked with him last week.
On January 6th, did you speak with him before, during, or after the Capitol was attacked?
I'd have to go. I spoke with him that day after. I think after. I don't know if I spoke with him in the morning or not. I just don't know. I'd have to go back and. I mean, I don't know that when those conversations happened. But what I know is I spoke with him all the time.
So good. You know, and sometimes you see clips like that and you just think to yourself,
motherfuckers are crazy.
Wait, dang it. I botched it.
These motherfuckers are crazy.
Whoa. Kamala unleashed. So, no. This is not some phone tapping scandal.